For the voice of reason. John Martin's my name, and you've already seen the introductions from my other panel here. I'm going to cover old topics first,
Mm-hmm.
and I have an old one on recycling.
Uh-oh.
Uh, I've been surprised at the changes that have occurred in the economy for products available. As an example, I have seen two different companies are selling running shoes that are totally organic. And you can't do with the running shoes that I have on today because they're different materials that are wound together.
Mm-hmm.
But you can do it with this one because it's, I think one of them had natural rubber for the sole
Oh,
because I have a tree. So anyway, there were other things that have changed. One thing I was looking at was how the world's doing with recycle the bottles.
mm-hmm.
Uh,
The plastic bottles?
Plastic bottles, the ones that they have a little triangle at the bottom and has a 1 in it.
Mm.
That's usually the ones you can see through, and and also the ones that have a 2 in it, which is the ones you can't see through, like a milk bottle. Now those two are the ones that are being recycled, but there's many more, 3 and higher, and worldwide they're not recycling that much. So since we now have a system in place to recycle directly from your house to a vendor, town's picking it up every other week. They pick up different kinds of recycling, but the thing I wanted to improve on was the only complaint I saw in town was a sign that says, "Don't leave your liquids in the bottle." It's an extra step they have to go through, and maybe they're not doing it, they're just pitching it because it's not it's labor intensive to open the bottle up and pour it out. So they have to have a place to put it and all that kind of stuff. Anyway,
I
so if
always
there's any
mm-hmm.
improvements to be made
Mm-hmm.
by each individual, it's looking at the bottles and making sure they're empty, and make sure they have 1 or 2 at the bottom, and then on we go.
So there are actually people inspecting each and every bottle at the recycling plant?
I think when they get it to the recycling place, if they have to sort them out in order to sell them,
Okay.
because it's kind of mixed with other things in the trash pickup. Cans is the other thing, right?
Yes, aluminum.
So
Cans.
yeah. So anyway, we can make some slight improvements there, I'm sure. Recycling. I saw a bag day before yesterday from Shaw's. It said on it, it's recyclable. It's 25% recyclable. It was a small bag too.
Paper or plastic?
It was plastic. So I thought, it's the first time I ever seen the sign on the bag that says it's recyclable. But then they have to participate in a program to get it back so they can put it in a place where they can get recycled. But I thought, so it was interesting that things are changing and giving you more opportunities to recycle. Anyway, so I guess that's all the good news I got. Let's see, we have an old topic on dress code from the schools, don't we, Charlie?
Right, from last program, I started a little presentation on dressing for success. And this is a poster I saw on a bulletin board in a school, and it gave specific recommendations for women and men as to how you should dress when you go for an interview. And I will quickly go through some of the highlights of each. Well, for women, they say that the hair should be at shoulder length. You should have minimum makeup, avoid very dark or bright colors on your face or in your hair. They shouldn't have any, no excessive jewelry, and certainly any jewelry that makes any noise should be eliminated. Minimal perfume or fragrance or none at all would be better. They should have well-tailored suit. Again, the color, black, gray, or navy, or blue is fine. If you are going to have anything to carry any papers with you, have it in a very small, neat briefcase or handbag, but very neat, conservative. Neutral color hose, light or clear nail polish, and a close toe, low heel shoes. Closed toe, low heel shoe for women. And then for men, they talk about short hair, neat, clean. If you have a beard, very, very neatly trimmed, or preferably no beard at all. But if you're going to have one, it has to be in a certain clean fashion, as it said. Avoid bright colors, have an attaché case or a portfolio if you need papers. Again, no excessive jewelry, no earrings for the men. Polished shoes, no boots, minimal or no cologne. Again, a well-tailored suit, black, navy, or gray. Color seems to be very important. And wearing a white shirt with a conservative tie with no bright colors. And then for both, there should be no smoking or no gum chewing when you go. You should be careful on that. You cover up any body piercing or tattoos that you may have. You don't want to expose those. You want to be generally clean and neat about every other part of your appearance. Your nails should be clean and short cut. And you should attempt to dress better than the person that's interviewing you. If you have any opportunity to know who that person, how that person is going to dress you should improve that. And they said the golden rule is take clothing out of the equation so that your capabilities can be seen, which are all very commendable. Now, here is where I would like to make an observation. For young people, and I'm thinking not just people in college, but more people in high school, even people in earlier grades, they've got to see examples of this when they go to school. They're not. Because clearly the staff at colleges, universities, high schools, and go right all the way through our education system, everybody is dressing down. And I think you probably have seen how teachers dress today. And from my position, I call it deplorable. It's very unprofessional. It certainly does not convey the idea that schools are a place of serious business. Therefore, if students don't see this, how are they going to observe the school as a place of serious business? As a result, this translates into how they're going to carry out their social behavior patterns, and it also carries over how they're going to carry out their academic behavior patterns. Are they going to be studying hard and because they know this is serious, or are they going to look at school as a fun and games? So if they don't see these things growing up all the way from primary school through middle school to high school to college, then when they go for a job interview, they're going to be rather shocked that they're going to have to make themselves with this presentation if they haven't seen anybody modeling that. And it's too bad, because if these things were in place for everybody, all professional educators, then I believe the results of our students, their behavior would be a lot better. Now, granted, it has been taken to court that teachers have a right to dress any way they want. But I think this is another example of where your responsibility to your profession outweighs your personal rights to how you want to get dressed. The two really should not be in balance, but they are, unfortunately. And I can remember it was in the late 60s when teachers won the right to dress as they wanted to. School committees or principals could not tell their staff how to dress. And I immediately saw what happened in our school, where I was teaching at the time. The teachers just came in dungarees. When it got warmer, they were wearing sandals, shorts, and cut-off T-shirts, some of them. And that also translated into the students not having a dress code. And the result of that was, from my eyes, more social behavior problems and less emphasis on academic excellence. Credible academics is no longer in place. So with that, and this wouldn't cost any money, by the way. It wouldn't cost the taxpayer 1 single cent if everybody just dressed up and made themselves more professionally presentable. But it also spills over to other areas too. I go into hospitals. I don't see physicians dressing up like they used to. I don't see nurses dressing up like they used to. And I think that has to do, that impacts our care, because when you are dressed up, you're going to play the role that you should be playing, and part of anybody's job is being careful with detail. Whether you're a teacher or a physician or a dentist or whatever you do, whether you're an auto mechanic, you have to be careful with detail. And how you dress, I think, sets the tone as to how you're going to behave in your profession. So with that, I will rest and say I've had my piece on that. And I hope it carries out and people will say, maybe he does have a point. Maybe we could do something.
Well, I remember right off the bat, right when I was graduating from college, my father made sure he gave me that book. Thin little book, Dress for Success. I still have that book today. And now you can just go on to Google and say Dress for Success and see what it comes up with. And it's going to have, a different area. You can look up, here's how you should dress for an interview. Here's how you should dress in a school environment. And hopefully people would adhere to it. But like you say, if you're not getting the example, you're not going to follow an example.
Exactly right.
Yeah, I remember when I moved to Pennsylvania, the school was slightly ahead of where I was in Maryland. They were already in dungarees, all of them. Now, my mother already bought me clothes for school, and it was khaki pants and a nice shirt. I remember getting comments about how dressed up I was. I said, well, I don't have any money to buy anything else. I was pretty poor in those days, so yeah, I got a comment right away. I know my daughter was in Newport, Rhode Island. Newport. I went to the high school to visit, and she was having a problem with her mother because she didn't want to wear dresses anymore. And so she had some pantsuit outfits, and she was wearing those every day. Her mother said, no, you gotta wear out these dresses. So I went and took a look. There was, over 1,000 kids in the school, and there was only 2 in dresses.
Really?
2. I said, the social pressure here is unbelievable because they don't look like everybody else. So we had more problems with the wife than I did the kid after that. But anyway, it goes in cycles, and sometimes the cycle's pretty bad as far as how you look. I was always surprised when the dungarees got to the plants. We could buy them with the holes already in them.
I would
saying-
refuse to wear them with holes, or even with patches. My mother would fight with me. She said, "You're just playing with those." And those, I said, "I don't know where those. They look terrible." But things have changed, and it costs more money to buy them faded and with the holes and patches in them. I guess they're very expensive.
So what's your topic today, Bob?
Okay, guys, we're gonna do a little follow-up from what Chris brought forward at our last session that we had here when we taped the meeting, and that was the trash contract between Pellegrino Waste Management and Casella, where we found that Casella actually had the lowest bid over the next 5 years for about $192,000 over 5 years. I was able to find out and seek out the selectmen. 2 of the selectmen happened to be at a open location where they were taking questions. I was able to talk to them about the trash contract. And after they took my information down, they said, okay, well, let me find out for you. So they went obviously to the town manager and said, okay, what is the scenario here? And here's what they came back with. I got they were very nice about it. and they gave me a very, prompt response. So I appreciate that, and I do appreciate their efforts in trying to find out how this occurred. Basically, they're saying to us that the proposals need to be brought into an apples to apples comparison. So basically, that Waste Management was going to be providing the town with pickups of all the town buildings, the schools, at no charge. And Casella did not, as this is what they told us. But even after factoring all that out, in year one, it was gonna be a little different, year two is gonna be a little different, but it still wound up being that Casella was $27,000 less. And we know from the statute being that they need to go with the least, do you have the exact terminology on that
Yes,
statute?
it's, just in case any lawyers are watching, it's Massachusetts General Laws, Title 3, Chapter 30B, Section 5G, and it reads, "The procurement officer shall award the contract to the lowest responsible and responsive bidder."
So even after they factored out that extra bonus from Waste Management of the collection of all the buildings, town buildings and schools, Casella was still lower by 27,000. And then they threw in something to the extent that it's not taking into account the further favorable negotiations and reductions to Waste Management's proposal, which actually could go to any of the contracts, and also it's not taking into account the time value of money. Again, that would also be across the board with all three, that, you can get more favorable terms eventually if we don't have as many bags that get recycled for the leaf collection, or if there's not as much tonnage for branches, or even when they collect the trees, which they're going around doing this year, right now, this week, the Christmas trees, they're gonna weigh that, and they're gonna, charge accordingly for that, so. Casella probably never found out that they, lost out, and they actually had the lowest bid. Sadly. So my question is, who is checking on the town manager? Is the finance committee actually checking these? I mean, there are literally hundreds of contracts that do get negotiated. But I would hope there is a check and balance system by either the finance committee or the board of selectmen on what the town manager does. Because it's obviously didn't go with the lowest bidder. And now, we've compiled on with all the complaints about changing over to a new vendor, whether it's bins being thrown on people's yards from a distance, or not all the bags being picked up. That portion was what drove us to look into it further, and this is what we found. So I hope that they have a check and balance system put in place, because this is just one contract we looked at. How many others is this going on with? And especially when you're talking about an $18 million school that's being built. Hopefully, we're just keeping our fingers crossed that they actually are using the least expensive bidders. Chris, any input on that?
I would just point out that, if you're a sore loser in the bidding process and you wanted to challenge this decision in court, I don't know how you would defend it, because Waste Manager, even though Casella had the lowest bid by the selectmen's own admission, they said, well, we didn't go with the lowest bidder because further, as Rob pointed out, further favorable negotiated price reductions to Waste Management's proposal and the time value of money. Also noticed that the RFP document was for the most advantageous proposal meeting the town's criteria, not the lowest bid, which is not what state law says, as I just pointed out. So, if Casella wanted to be a bad loser, I don't know how this decision would be defensible. Also, I would point out that in addition to what you heard from Rob about the decision, supposedly, I heard from a reliable source that Waste Management had said that it was going to put in have trucks with automatic trash sorting, so that it would sort the recyclables into plastics and metals and so forth. So they could pick everything up at once, toss it into the truck, and bing, it all be sorted. However, they didn't have enough money to pay for those trucks at present, and what I heard was the plan was that they would operate with the trucks that they have for some time until they had earned enough money to buy the trucks that have the sorters. So.
And I think those trucks are finally coming around, because I do see some new trucks in
Beautiful.
They're beautiful
They're
trucks.
beautiful, but they're very expensive, and we financed them over the last 6 months so they could buy them.
Yes, so, you
And
know.
then none of that came up in this response.
Yes, I was just about to mention.
None of that came up in this response.
And
Anyway,
those trucks will belong to Waste Management, not the-
Yes.
not the
Oh, yeah.
town.
Right.
yeah,
It's
so,
not part of the contract at all to do anything about the trucks.
anyway, it helps to do
That's
your,
what the peculiar.
helps to
So-
do your homework.
All we can do is bring it forward and let people know what we found out.
Yes, yes.
And
Well, one thing about Waste Management, I don't think the way that all of their employees behave equal to what we had with the Pellegrino. Pellegrino crews were very, very careful, very considerate.
Yeah.
I have seen numerous times where they would take waste, well, by waste I mean cans and plastic and that sort of thing, and sometimes something would fall on the ground, they won't pick it up,
No.
it just it stays there and they drive off.
yeah.
Mm,
And I've had to go out and I pick it up and put it away. Whereas Pellegrino, they were careful. The other thing is how these people will toss your bin, actually throw it.
From across the street, or halfway in the
Well,
middle.
they'll be behind the truck,
Yeah.
they'll unload it and they'll just toss it to wherever it's
I
gonna
know mine
be.
is cracked now.
Right, and I just brought mine into the town
Yours is
manager's
too?
office today. I've had that bin for as long as we've been doing recycling. I asked you earlier, it was 15 years, you said? We've been recycling?
I think so.
Well,
About,
this,
yeah.
it's a green bin, they don't even have the green bins anymore.
right.
They're the rectangular ones, they're nice bins. It developed 2 cracks. I brought it into the town manager's office today and I showed them. I said, this is now the third time I've come in and showed you and talked about what's going on. And hopefully I said, you can do something about it, but, on Monday when they came, I saw them going down, Westmont Circle, and they were tossing. The
Yeah.
fellow that was doing it was tossing. So I decided just to go and stand there on my front step. And when he came down Westmont Road, picked mine up, he saw me standing there, as well as the driver saw me standing there. They were looking at me, I saw them. We made eye contact. He took my bin and very carefully put it on the ground.
If
And
you-
he continued to the neighbor after me and did the same thing. So they know the right thing to do
If someone's watching.
if somebody's watching.
Don't mess with Charlie Garabedian.
Well, yeah, I mean, but it's sad that these people that aren't home to watch, that they have to be home
Right,
to watch,
they
they
have to
have
be
it done
watching.
right. This is what we're paying for. I don't think that we're getting a money value out of that. And the fact that I've had to go to the town manager's office 3 times now and talk about things that they have done that are improper.
Well, we're stuck with them for the next 3.5, 4 years. It's a 5-year contract, so
So the town can't break the contract?
I don't think they're gonna, because
Okay.
unfortunately, there are literally hundreds of contracts the town negotiates.
Right.
So basically, they negotiate it, put it to bed, unless someone like us comes in and says, "What the heck did you guys do? We didn't even go with the lowest bidder, and now we're getting crappy service."
So is it,
And the cost is going up for
And the
us,
costs are up,
too.
and we're gonna go pay 50 cents more on the bags, or 50% increase.
right,
And then
and the bins are going
the
up?
bins are going up, and the bulky's going up $5 too. Chris, we got 5 minutes left.
Okay, real fast. In November of last year, the selectmen received a letter from a couple of people in town who are interested in having the town raise your taxes. They are advocating a Community Preservation Act, which allows the town to add a surcharge to your property tax bill of up to 3%. This surcharge can be used for open space preservation, preservation of historic resources, development of affordable housing, and acquisition and development of outdoor recreational facilities. And they are allowed to grant some exemptions to people who get their taxes raised. Right now, there are 176 cities and towns in Massachusetts. That's about 48% of the total that do have this, and that includes Northborough, Grafton, and West Boylston. Worcester at this moment is thinking out loud about it. And there was way back, if I can find it amidst all this clutter, in January 22nd, 2001, a hearing in town about adopting this. So anyway, back in November, the selectmen received a letter by a small committee in town to suggest that the selectmen put a article on the warrant of the annual town meeting, the upcoming annual town meeting, to have a ballot question about whether the town should adopt a Community Preservation Act. So right now, this is only being thought out loud. They're just being considered. It hasn't even been really taken up by the selectmen. So there is, at this moment, no imminent danger of this getting on the annual warrant. But I did want you to know that it is being considered, and if you want to look up the details, it was the Community Preservation Act is a state act. It requires the money raised from this surcharge to be a surtax to be sequestered and allocated specific fractions of the money for specific purposes, and also the state has a small fund which they have. They get the money from the filings of deeds at the Registry of Deeds. That money is dispersed to any community that's got one of these Community Preservation Acts. Although with 176 participating, I think the money's going to be spread thin. If you want the details, you can look at Chapter 267 of the Acts of 2000, which is the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44B.
So in essence, this is another way that the town could go around the Proposition 2.5 override
Yeah.
and tax us more.
Yep.
When you say 3%, Chris, 3% of what? 3% of your total assessment of your home? 3% of how much your home is being taxed for, or what?
We are
Do
looking.
they say, is that specified?
Yes, it's let's see, it is property owned and occupied, blah, 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 blah. It says here there are exemptions. Provision allows a real estate surcharge of not more than 3%.
3% of what?
And here we are looking for it on local charge of 3%. So
It's most likely gonna be of your regular tax
I
rate.
would imagine just like a Prop 2.5 is, just like a override allows you 5% of your property. This would be up to 3% of your property's assessed value.
Well, it's time to say goodnight.
To be
Thank you all.
continued.
See you
Okay.
next time.